And also that every person has their own time to change. And when my friend died suddenly of a brain aneurysm, my life didn't change. I just continued doing whatever I was doing. And it wasn't until about 4 years later that another person died right in front of me of a brain aneurysm. And that was the time for me.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, I'm super excited. I am talking with my new friend, Lucio, and I'm going to let you pronounce your last name for me, please.
Abbruzzese, Italian.
Abbruzzese. Okay, thank you. And we have lots to talk about with his journey, his spiritual journey, and his life journey. So thank you, everyone, for being here and for watching. Hello, Lucio.
Hello, thank you for having me, Sharon.
Of course, yeah. We spoke recently and just seemed like something clicked where, wow, we have some things in common with our journey a little bit. And I thought, you need to share your experiences if you don't mind. So yes. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, I think that's my pleasure. And yeah, it's time, I think, to share some of those our stories with the world.
Right. I agree with you. So I'm going to read your bio that you sent me. So just to give people a little bit of an idea where you're at. Let me pull this up here. Lucio Abbruzzese.
You got it.
Okay. Was born and raised in Toronto to Italian immigrant parents. Raised in a traditional Catholic culture, Lucio always felt a special closeness to Jesus from a very young age. As an altar boy, Lucio was involved in the weekly life of his church, helping at Mass, funerals, and weddings. At 15, he made a sudden dramatic departure from his traditional faith life and spent the next 10 years in the spiritual wilderness. Lucio was jolted back into connecting with the life source by finding a dying man on a neighborhood street on the morning of Palm Sunday in 1995. Lucio fervently introduced himself back into his Catholic heritage, contemplating priesthood. At this point, Lucio's entire world shifted and was given an opportunity to teach religion in a Catholic high school. While teaching, Lucio discovered this was his true vocation and became also involved in many social justice activities, including Free the Children and Street Patrol, caring for the homeless of Toronto. In 2008, Lucio, along with a newfound friend, shared an experience of Jesus. Jesus became visibly present for a prolonged period in time, and the love emanated from Jesus was very powerful and overwhelming. This miracle is the defining moment of Lucio's life. Lucio has been teaching now for 25 years, and as he approaches retirement, is contemplating his next chapter in life and is trying to embrace all things spiritual as his soul journey continues. Wow. Can't wait to dive in.
Us to unpack. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So share a little bit, if you would, where you want to start with your journey.
Well, start from the beginning, I guess. Yes. I grew up in Toronto in the 1970s, and it was a really great city at the time. It was small and not too big. And I just remember, the typical childhood of playing on the street and just not caring about any, danger. And it was just, in a way, idyllic. I mean, I had, problems as a child, as anyone does, but some great memories. And I was Italian heritage, and the local church was a big part of our life. And I always felt connected to Jesus at a very young age. I had a grandmother who was very religious, and we used to sleep in the same bed when I was really young. And she would, always remind me to say my prayers before going to bed. And she didn't have a lot of education. It was very very simple and pure, and I could feel, that love that she had. And so I always felt really connected to Jesus. At the time, I didn't know why. Specifically, I mean, in a way, I thought everyone kind of did, because that was my frame of reference. Is okay, I feel close. Everyone else does too. But I've learned since maybe not. So so looking back, I feel blessed that I had that connection from an early age when a lot of people don't. And I was introduced by a friend to become part of the altar boy service, and I felt at home on the altar, helping priests and being part of the daily life and at the time, I don't think it happens now, but at the time, my elementary school was right next to the parish, and I would be called out of class like maybe 2 or 3 times a week to serve at funerals. So I'd be going to 3 funerals a week as a young child. And it's like, looking back, I think that gave me a certain, again, unique perspective on life, and how it's not forever,
Right.
And different types of endings, at funerals where the church was packed. So, this person had a tremendous amount of life and love in their life. Other times it was empty, and this person had died alone, basically. Funerals with small caskets, so like a baby dying, a child dying, those were the worst. Luckily, there weren't too many of those. But it was a nice beginning to my life, and it kind of ended at puberty, I guess, in a way, because as I mentioned in the bio there, at 15, I kind of made a decision. It was a decision to just step away. At the time, there were a couple of things happening. I was told I couldn't be an altar boy any longer because I was too old. And so I felt, okay, I lost my role. And I started hanging out with a whole group of friends, and they weren't particularly spiritual, let's put it that way. And, we got into quite a bit of mischief as young people. And looking back too, I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, because I said I was an altar boy and close to Jesus, I had an inclination that maybe God wanted me to be a priest, a Catholic priest. And at 15, that's a hard thing to take. And as you may or may not know, Catholic priests take 3 vows, and they're pretty harsh vows: vows of celibacy, poverty, and obedience. And at 15, those things don't really resonate. I don't care how much you love Jesus, at least for me,
Yeah.
So I think that may have been the reason why I just took off, and it was dramatic. I mean, from going to church, to mass every Sunday, to just stopping. And even though I went to a Catholic high school and it was part of my, life, it really was sort of secondary. So I think I maintained a bit of spirituality on my own, but with the lack of community and just the hormones raging and going off on these adventures, I guess, of just growing up, I kind of lost that connection to Jesus, basically, and to God, a strong one anyway. And so that sort of continued, that pattern continued till I was in my mid-20s, so 25, 26. I'd graduated from university, and I was, at that age, I was just lost. I didn't have a job that I liked, a career that I was passionate about. I wasn't in a strong romantic relationship with anyone, or anyone in any kind of relationship, really. Just kind of floating, kind of empty. And it was getting bad, and it kind of changed all in kind of one day. And that's why it's such a dramatic story. And that's the Palm Sunday 1995 event that I'd mentioned in the bio. And I had gone just for a walk in the early morning on the Sunday. And of course, Palm Sunday is the Sunday just before Easter. And it's a big event in my family. We have a large extended family, and every year we would get together for lunch. So just prior to that, because I obviously wasn't going to go to mass, it just wasn't part of my life. I just went out for a walk in the early hours of that morning. And as I was walking through a neighborhood that there was construction happening, there were some new houses being built, I saw a strange rubble kind of pile of something in the distance, and I thought that's kind of odd. Something's off here. And as I approached, it was a man. It was an older man, and he was lying face down on the ground. And I could tell that something was really wrong, because just the way his body was, he was stiff. His face was gray. There was blood coming from his mouth and his nose, and his eyes were closed, and he wasn't moving. And I approached him and said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he didn't say anything. He didn't move. And then I got the courage to kind of shake him a bit just to see what was happening. And his eyes opened. And so at least I knew he was alive. And so I said, okay, I'm going to get help. This is before cell phones. And so I said, I'm going to go to the nearest house. I'll wake them up. I'm going to call the ambulance service, and I literally said to him, don't die on me. Okay. And I'll be back. And so I go to the nearest house. I wake them up, call 911. There's a man dying on the street. They give me a blanket. I go back to the man, and I'm just waiting for the ambulance to come with this man. And it's just me and him. And it seems like the ambulance is taking forever to come. Now, it probably didn't, but to me, it seemed like I was in eternity with this man. And I obviously wanted to help him in some way. I wanted to do something. And I didn't know anything about medical procedures. I didn't know what was wrong with him. So because of my history of being an altar boy and my connection with Jesus and the church, why don't I pray for this man? And I couldn't connect. I couldn't pray. And it was a huge shock. It was like, whoa, like I couldn't find, when we pray, meditate, whatever you want to call it, the connection, it just wasn't there. And being sensitive as a young boy, and having still that sort of sensitivity throughout my life, it felt like a huge loss. That was something that was present, and now the dying man clearly showed it wasn't there. So that was the dramatic moment that changed my life, really, literally. The ambulance eventually did come, and they took him away. And I found out later, somehow through a neighbor, so that the man had died of a brain aneurysm, and that he was there checking out the house that his daughter had just bought, and he was there just checking out to see if it was built properly, whatever. And it just, he just died on the spot, basically. And I was there. And so I went home, and I was in shock. And as I said, we gathered as a family on Palm Sunday, and I told everyone about it. And I went into a really deep depression for like a month, 2 months. And it was the darkest time of my life, really. Where I started to take stock, basically, and just do an inventory of my life. And I didn't like what I was seeing, feeling. And it got so bad, like that I just felt hopeless. I felt like there was no way back. And I almost felt like I wanted out. Like, this is my signal. Like, my life hasn't gone well. At the time, I'm 26, 27. Looking back, it's young, but I felt felt the pressure of being like, you got to get your act together, and that my act wasn't together, and I just didn't have the tools that felt necessary.
You know what, can I interrupt you for just a second? Thank you for sharing that, Lucio. What's really interesting is you were around 26, 27, and you may already know this, but do you know that that's almost like a benchmark for a lot of young people who do commit suicide?
Yes, or tragedy of some kind. I don't know about this
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but the tragedy of
it.
Yeah.
Died tragically. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that something? It's something about that age.
Right. Wow. So a turning point for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there was like one really dark night, and you know, I got through it, and the way I got through it was basically, as they say, you know, that you hit rock bottom, and you know, I really did, and I basically at that point said, I've got nothing left, and I just basically gave my life to Jesus. I mean, it was just a simple decision at the end. It was like, either this is true and what I've experienced in the past is real as far as the feelings go, and what I've been taught and my faith, or it's not. And if it is, you've got to live a certain way. And if it's not, then accept whatever this is. It's a kind of sucky life, and I just had to come to some sort of peace with it. But for me, the decision was to embrace the light, really, and just say, I'm going to give my life now to whatever that is, and whatever that climb out is, I'll do it. And because of my background, you know, I had the resources of the Catholic Church, the sacraments, all of it, the dogma, the rigidity of it when you're struggling. And I've talked to addicts in the past about it as well, that there seems to be a need for that at the beginning, you know, the rigidity, like this is right, this is wrong, this is what you need to do. I did need that, you know, and so I just started connecting with my church again, my faith life, and I went to confession. So basically, the Catholic Church is all about the sacraments, and confession is one of them. And so I went to confession, and it was the first time in probably 12 years, if not longer. And I remember being so nervous going, you know, to the priest, and he was so cool about it. And he said, like this happens all the time. You've been away for 12 years, who cares? And you know, I could have told him I killed people. I felt he wouldn't have blinked an eye. It's like, okay. So I don't know if I got lucky with the good priest, but it was like very welcoming, and it's like, welcome back. And I did feel a lot more relieved. And I started going back to going to mass, not just on Sundays. I started going to mass every single day, you know. And if you're wondering who goes to mass on a Tuesday morning in July, it's a bunch of old ladies and me. And I was young, bunch of old Italian ladies, you know, doing the rosary. And there I was, you know, I stuck out, but I just didn't.
What, like in your late 20s, and you're
yeah,
a bunch of old ladies, dude.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, but you know, I just didn't care, and right. I needed it, you know. And at that point, my life completely changed. Everything turned around. I started getting direction in my life, and of course, the thought that I had when I was a child of becoming a priest came back. And so I thought, okay, you know, buckle up. This is what God wants. He wants me to be a priest, and I've been running away, and so I went full in. I got a spiritual director. I got, you know, connected with the Archdiocese of Toronto, and they call it discernment. And it's almost like dating. You're dating the church, and you're wondering if there's a good connection, you know. And so I did, and I kind of had to say goodbye to my old friends, and it just wasn't comfortable hanging out with them anymore. And I met new friends, and it was a wonderful time. I was on fire, there was that innocence, early innocence, of connecting with the source again. It was really something. And I think looking back, a lot of people saw that in me, and my name Lucio means light, and I think
yes.
it's, I think we're named for a reason, and so, about this, just that summer too, what was important, because I don't want to make it all about me. I felt that there was something still missing after I was going to mass every Sunday and every day, and I was reading scripture, and I connected with the church. And I was thinking about, but I felt still something missing in my life, and I couldn't figure it out until I just dawned on me. Of course, it's not all about lip service. It's not just about talk. It's about, loving your neighbor, and in real terms. And so basically it meant helping others. And I had never done that. I've been a very selfish person, basically. And the only person I cared about was myself for a very long time. And so, again, I didn't know what to do, where to look. And I connected with the Office of Catholic Youth, and they had a program of handing out sandwiches to the homeless in Toronto. I basically started in 1995 doing that, and it was a perfect fit for me. I love being downtown and walking, and I could relate to the people who were like basically at the bottom of what, quote unquote life, and had nothing to lose because I had just been there, in a spiritual way anyway. And so I resonated with that, and that changed my life too, because these last 30 years have been a life of service in a way too. I've done a lot of social justice activities, especially at my high school, and I basically ended up running street patrol. That's what the program is called, helping the homeless, and it's been a great part of my life.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's something that I call it a walking prayer, and I get so much out of it. The volunteers get so much out of it. It's been a real important part of my faith life. And when I tell this story, I have to include that part, because without action, what is love? You've got to act on it.
Yeah.
And so that is a big part of my spiritual journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Isn't it? That's what Christ taught us, right? Is to be love, express love, and love others, and that's through action, like you said. I mean, if we sit in our space and say "I love you" out to the world and everything like that, that's awesome too. But
Yes.
We're here to experience.
Yes, in any way that you feel for you. Like for me, I felt like that was for me, homeless. And I tell my students, maybe you like working with the elderly. Like for me, I get spooked out in nursing homes. It doesn't, it's not for me. But I know some people just love working with the elderly, and some people like working with, disadvantaged youth, and some people like working with animals, whatever. You've got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be just your family, your immediate family, and that is where your focus is, but you've got to put it out into the world in some way.
Right. So you didn't become a priest. Right?
No.
Okay, let's hear that.
No. Yes. Yeah. It took a long time. My spiritual director basically said to me, pardon the expression, shit or get off the pot. Because I was discerning for about 8 years, and I could, 8 years at least. Uh, 'Cause I
It's like a
couldn't.
man that won't put a ring on a girl's finger.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, I was dating the Catholic Church. It's like you
Right.
gotta admit. I was like, where are you? Because I guess I couldn't get out of that feeling when I was young. Because when I was young, a priest, I'll never forget this. A priest told a bunch of young guys, we were altar boys, I think, and he said, you know what? If God wants you to be a priest, you'll never be able to hide. He will track you down, and like it or not. And I think I got in my head, and it's like, oh my God. And so I couldn't get out of my head. But then I obviously, I as an adult, you get more wisdom, and there wasn't my spiritual director said a very wise thing, and he said, "You will know what your vocation is if you are happy. It's as simple as that. And if the idea of becoming a priest doesn't make you happy, it's not for you." And so all of this time, another miracle story was I got a job teaching religion in a Catholic high school and teaching social justice. It was my own course. I was offered my own course on social justice out of nowhere. And, it was difficult at the time to get a teaching job. And it was at my dream high school. It felt right. But so even though I was teaching and doing all of that, while I was teaching, I was still thinking, no. And I told the principal when he hired me, look, I'm thinking about becoming a priest. I can only say maybe I'll be here for a year or two. Are you okay with that? And he said, okay, that's fine. And so it took a while, but at the time I felt, yeah, I think this is where God does want me to be with young people, because that is a special gift. And again, everyone, like I have colleagues who were like working with 8-year-olds, and like for me, that would be a nightmare, yeah, it really would. But for some reason, 14, 15-year-old, that's my age.
Okay.
Yeah. And I maybe that is because that's the age when I
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
yeah,
that came to me too. Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
And there's another part of the story that's a bit interesting in that while after finding the dying man in the street, my life changed and everything. I was going through some old photographs, and I found a photograph of myself in my high school graduation mass, and there are 4 people praying. There's 4 people in the photograph. 3 people are praying, and there's one that's looking at the camera with these eyes like, "Get me the hell out of here! I don't want to be here." And of course, that was me.
There's you.
And my father was taking the photograph. But what was interesting was that I'd forgotten that the person next to me was a friend, not a close friend, but a friend, and who had died just a few years after that photograph was taken. He was a young man. We were 21, 22. And I remember when he died, we all went to his funeral. And again, I was still in that very selfish stage and not spiritual connected. And I remember just feeling, upset that his funeral was like early in the morning, and I would lose my sleep because I had to go to this guy's funeral. And how did he die? He died the same way as that dying man did on the street, of a brain aneurysm. And so I have that photograph on my desk at work, at school, and at the bottom it says, "Life is a work in progress." I wrote a quote there because if you saw me in that photograph, you would never have thought I would have ever, become a religious person. And also that every person has their own time to change. And when my friend died suddenly of a brain aneurysm, my life didn't change. I just continued doing whatever I was doing. And it wasn't until about 4 years later that another person died right in front of me of a brain aneurysm, and that was the time for me.
Wow.
As if God is knocking, right? But he's not
Yeah.
going to open that door. You got to open it. And just that, it just wasn't time. So
Wow.
I found that was a kind of an odd thing
Yes,
to
well,
remember.
yeah. Here's your sign, another
Yeah.
sign, another sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my dad used to say, that if well, he'd say God or guidance or whatever, your higher self, whatever, the universe, source, doesn't get your attention, we'll keep trying to get your attention, and if he doesn't, then there's a time we're gonna get hit over the head with a 2x4 sooner or later.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah,
you can't avoid it.
No.
Right.
No.
That is really, that's profound right there. That's 3 people. 3's
Yeah.
the number 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So speaking of signs, then the greatest sign of all, and this is the miracle story, and I've not told this publicly, so this will be the first time, really.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, but it's time. Even though it happened in 2008, it's been 15 years or so. It's taken time to kind of percolate, and for me to, and I'm still, I'll never really be, it'll be an unfolding forever,
Sure.
that
I
experience.
understand that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But if you want me to get into the story of that. So, fast forward, it's now 2008.
Oh, wait, before you start, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you decided not to become a priest.
Yes.
And you stayed as a teacher for young people, which that was your career, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you so you taught young people religion and social justice as a career, correct?
Yes.
In high school, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're happy in that vocation?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Nice.
And I look back on those early years when I was younger. It was, I was on, like, that fire was there. I look back sometimes of myself almost like a third person.
Yeah.
Wow, did I really do all of that? Like, it seems incredible, but it was an incredible time. In the early 2000s, there was something in the air that was really special. I think those young people, especially, I guess they would be millennials. There was something really special about that vintage of teenagers.
Right. Well, thank you for leading and helping them, of course, helping that generation from your corner of the world, for sure. But you still have the volunteer work, or the organizations where you help people as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're a retired teacher now, is that right?
Almost. I've got 2 years.
Okay.
2 years to go. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're still teaching. Nice.
Still teaching. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful.
Unless God has other plans for me, I'm always open to whatever is coming. But as far as I'm concerned, it looks like maybe 2 years, but who knows?
Yeah. So we don't have all the answers, but we just kind of follow along what we think is right for us. So I do have a question for you before we move on to your really profound experience there. Would you consider yourself religious or spiritual or both, and can you describe how the difference?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Because as I mentioned, I started off, pretty hardcore Catholic, because I was in need of all of the dogma and the sacraments, and I'm hired by the church to teach, the bottom line, so it's been an evolution of spirituality, of growth, where I'm open to anything really that resonates with me, and it's not about dogma. It's not about the black and white. It's not about I wouldn't even call myself a strict Catholic anymore either. a follower. I just call myself a follower of Jesus, really. And it does it. Any religion will get you to God, if you allow the good parts to come through.
Right.
And the institution of the Catholic Church has a lot of flaws, as any institution does. There's no excuse for that. It's just the way it is. There's a lot of good. I never came across a priest that was abusive to me in any way. I was taught by a lot of priests in my high school, and at the time there wasn't as there's a priest shortage. So if you're a priest, they're not going to allow you to teach in a high school anymore. You're needed in a parish. But when I was growing up, I was taught science by a priest. I was taught, English literature. These were good men. And there's something about, living your life with these vows, and it's not just about talk. And these are men dedicated to the spiritual life, in secular society, which is commendable,
Right.
But for me, I think it would be too much of a. It's not open. I don't think it's too. It's not open. It's not open enough for me. So, not being connected in my personal life has allowed me to embrace anything that resonates, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm at the moment, and I'm looking forward to what's next in my journey.
I love that you said it's all about Yeshua, Jesus. It's all about him and his teachings and his essence and his love. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and I'm rewatching The Chosen. I know we talked about.
Yay!
And I love it because of how real, how human his disciples are, as well as Jesus, and that they are far from perfect.
Which is why he chose them, right? That's what he said too. But he says, and yeah.
Yes, right. And
he's not going to come to the planet and choose the Pharisee priests, and
right.
to follow him. Definitely.
Yes. So it gives me great comfort, and there's lots of scripture stories about the disciples fighting amongst themselves, who is the greatest. I'm the greatest, or I'm closer to Jesus. They're not my children, really. And somehow that's comforting, because I'm far from perfect, and so, but I'm a teacher, I do my best.
Right. Oh, and that's why we're here, right? Because I guess I kind of see it as trying to be like him, trying to as we walk through our day, for me anyway. And that's in my mind a lot during my day. What would Jesus do? I call him Yeshua. What would Yeshua do? What would he do in this moment? And how can I bring that into, as long as I have that clarity, how can I bring that into, my moments in my day? And that's how I have that connection with him. And I always get an answer.
Yeah. It's a great frame of life, frame reference,
Yeah.
It's everything.
Right. That's his sacrifice, or what he came here to help us, was not in vain. Helps me realize that for sure. Yeah. Speaking of Jesus, please do share. This is our segue, right?
Yes, perfect. I told you you're good at this. So it's now 2008. So I've been teaching for about 10 years. So and at this point, yes, I've just definitely decided that I'm not becoming a priest. And in fact, I started dating someone, and I was late to the scene with dating someone seriously. And then the whole thing about the priesthood came up, and I was going to date. So I fell in love with someone, and unfortunately, it didn't work out around the same time, so 2008. So I'm going through a lot of heartbreak, and I'm on a retreat with my grade 10 class, and we are going to a school that helps young adults with developmental challenge. They need help with everyday tasks, like how do you do your laundry, how do you get a job. It was a school to get those essential skills in, so once they graduate from high school. And the idea was that my students would just sort of intermingle with the everyday life of that school, and just hang out and help. So very simple. And the person who ran the school was a very interesting person. And she told us of these sightings in the school. There was something about the place where that school was built that was somehow holy, because there were reports of angels being sighted, of miracles happening, like healings. There was a garden off to the side, devoted to Mary. There was something very special to that whole space. And she even said it herself, that she had been told by God to start the school and to continue. And I won't tell her story because it's her story, but she impressed upon us that she was a very special person. So that was at the beginning of the day. So at lunchtime, I'm just minding my own business. My kids are having lunch. I'm just walking the hallway, just making sure everything's okay. And this person comes up to me. Let's call her Angie. Angie comes up to me and says, I just got a message from God. He wants me to pray with you. Are you okay with that? And I said, well, sure. Okay. I got nothing else to do right now. I'll pray with you. I'll pray with anyone.